They told us globalization would change everything, that it would lift nations out of poverty, connect people across borders, and create opportunities for all. It was the dream of a world without walls, where innovation, trade, and ideas would flow freely. From the skyscrapers of New York to the factories of Shenzhen, from the oil fields of Middle East to the tech hubs of Silicon Valley, the message was clear. Join the global economy or be left behind. And so, one by one, countries opened their markets, borders softened, trade agreements were signed, corporations expanded, money flowed faster than never before. The world became smaller, but the gap between the rich and the poor grew wider than at any point in modern history. So the question remains, who actually benefited from globalization? To understand globalization, we must go back to its roots, the end of World War II. The world was rebuilding, economies were shattered, nations were desperate for stability. Out of the ashes came a new vision, a world connected by trade, finance, and cooperation. Institutions like the International Monetary Fund, World Bank, and later the World Trade Organization were born. Their mission to ensure that no nations would ever fall to isolation again. They promised peace through prosperity, integration through capitalism. By the late 20th century, globalization wasn't just an idea, it was an unstoppable force. Factories moved overseas, corporations turned into multinational empires. Products designed in California were assembled in China and sold in Africa. It was hailed as progress, a new era of abundance. But behind the optimism, something darker was taking shape. In theory, globalization was meant to lift all boats. In practice, it created a tidal wave that lifted yachts and sank the small ships beneath them. The global elite, those who owned the factories, controlled the shipping routes, and managed the banks, saw their wealth multiply exponentially. Meanwhile, the average worker saw their power disappear. In the West, industries collapsed under the pressure of cheap overseas labor. Entire towns built around factories were left hollow. Middle class families that once thrived on stable jobs now lived paycheck to paycheck. And in the developing world, the so called beneficiaries of globalization, workers earned cents per hour, producing goods could never afford to buy. Sweatshops replaced opportunity. Exploitation replaced empowerment. The promise of equality became a new form of economic hierarchy, a system where capital was free to move, but people were not. Globalization gave birth to something humanity had never seen before, corporations larger and more powerful than countries. In 1970, the world's top corporation operated within borders. By 2025, they operate above them. Apple's annual revenue exceeds the GDP of more than 100 nations. Amazon controls supply chains that span every continent. BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street collectively manage assets greater than the economies of entire regions. These corporate giants dictate trade, influence governments, and shape public policy, often behind closed doors. Lobbying became new diplomacy. Executives replaced ambassadors, and boardrooms replaced parliaments as the true centers of global decision making. Every click, every purchase, every data point all feed the machinery of globalization, enriching those who already sit at the top of the pyramid. Most people see globalization as a web of trade and finance, but at its core, it is a system of control. Control through debt, control through dependency, control through data. The IMF and World Bank lend money to developing nations, but the loans come with conditions. Open your markets, privatize your industries, cut subsidies, let foreign corporations in. And once a country accepts these terms, it rarely escapes them. Resources are extracted, labor is exploited, profits are repatriated to offshore accounts, leaving the host nation trapped in a cycle of dependency. Meanwhile, financial giants use global trade laws and tax loopholes to move trillions through havens like the Cayman Islands and Luxembourg, hidden from the eyes of the public. Globalization, it turns out, is not just about connecting economies, it is about consolidating power, vertically and silently. Walk into any supermarket, and it feels like the world is open to you. Italian pasta, Brazilian coffee, Japanese electronics, American jeans. It seems like endless variety, but peel back the labels and you will find the same handful of corporations behind most global brands. Nestle, PepsiCo, Unilever, Procter and Gamble, dozens of logos, one network of ownership. Even as we believe we are choosing freely, the market has already chosen for us. Globalization didn't democratize consumption, it standardized it. It turned culture into commodity, diversity into design, and nations into markets. We don't just buy global products anymore. We live inside a global system of consumption designed by the few for the many. So, who really benefits? The winners of globalization are not countries, they are classes. They are the investors, executives, and policymakers who control the flow of capital. They own the factories in Asia. They fund the tech startups in America. They hold the patents, the supply chains, and the trade routes. Their wealth doesn't exist in one place, it floats in cyberspace, untaxed, unregulated, untouchable. While ordinary citizens live bound by borders, the elite live in a borderless world, one where passports are investments and nations are business partners. The billionaire doesn't pledge allegiance to a country, he pledges allegiance to the system that sustains his wealth. That is globalization's true design. A world where capital moves freely, but accountability never does. For billions, globalization promised entry into the modern world, but what it often delivered was instability. Local industries wiped out by imports, farmers priced out by global agriculture, artisans replaced by mass production. In the global south, factory workers labor for subsistence wages while producing goods for markets thousands of miles away. In the global north, automation and outsourcing hollowed out once powerful middle classes. Both became dependent on the same systems that exploited them, a cycle of consumption and debt designed to keep the machine running. And when the system trembles, whether through financial crisis, pandemics, or wars, it is never the elite who pay the price. It is the workers, the families, the small businesses. Globalization for them became not a bridge to prosperity, but a trap disguised as progress. In the 21st century, globalization evolved again, this time into something invisible data. Information becomes the new oil, mined from our clicks, our conversations, our locations. The tech giants, Google, Meta, Amazon, and others, became the new global superpowers. They don't conquer land, they conquer attention. Their algorithms decide what we see, what we believe, what we buy, creating a global culture synchronized by code. Every search, every scroll, every transaction fuels an invisible empire, an empire that knows you better than your own government does. In this new global order, sovereignty isn't measured by territory, it is measured by control over information. And once again, that control rests in the hands of a few. They say globalization made the world richer, but richer for whom? Yes, global GDP has soared, but most of that growth has gone to the top 1%. For the rest, wages stagnated, while living costs exploded. We gained access to cheaper goods, but lost control over how and where they are made. We gained connectivity, but lost privacy. We gained choice, but lost sovereignty. The truth is, globalization worked exactly as designed to shift wealth upward and power outward, to create a world where profits cross borders freely, but responsibility never does. Today, the cracks are showing. Populism rises, protectionism returns. Nations question the rules of the global game. But can the world really reverse globalization? Unlikely, because the system is now too deeply intertwined, from trade to tech to finance. Even when countries fight, their corporations still cooperate. The global machine runs not on ideology, but on profit. And as long as profit rules, the system will adapt, evolve, and expand. The only real question is, will humanity learn? to control globalization, or will globalization continue to control humanity? Globalization promised to unite the world, and in some ways it did. We can talk across oceans, trade across borders, and share ideas instantly. But beneath the surface lies a harsh truth. This system was never built for everyone. It was built for efficiency, not equality, for profit, not people, for the elite, not for the many. And while the dream of a connected world still inspires hope, we must remember connection without fairness is just another form of control. Globalization didn't fail, as once economists put it. It succeeded for those it was meant to serve. So, next time you hear about global progress, ask yourself progress for whom, prosperity for whom, and power in whose hands? Because until we answer that, the world will remain connected but never truly united.